Let the record reflect the presence of our jury as well as the defendant, Mr. Demons, his counsel, the assistant state attorneys. And I think you are Michael Kelly, is that right?
Yes.
The next witness, can you raise your right hand for us?
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you should give in this case should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your full legal name for the record.
Michael Kelly.
Please spell your first and last name for the court.
And Michael is M-I-C-H-A-E-L. Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y.
Thank you, sir.
Please, have a seat. That microphone in front of you will adjust up or down, but does not move back and forth, all right?
That's the one.
Ready to go, sir? Counsel, you may.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Kelly. How are you today?
Good afternoon, I'm fine, thank you. But cold in here. It's cold in here.
Mr. Kelly, where do you work?
I work for the Miramar Police Department.
How long have you worked for the Miramar Police Department?
I worked for the Miramar Police 21 years.
What is your current job description?
My current job description is crime scene supervisor.
Prior to becoming the crime scene supervisor, what other hats have you worn at the Miramar Police Department?
I began as supervisor, and obviously you were selected. You move up from being a crime scene investigator to be supervisor, and with the right qualification for the job.
In terms of the time frame that you've been a supervisor, how long is that?
I've been a supervisor for 16 years now.
Prior to that, how long were you a crime scene investigator?
Say it again, sorry.
Prior to that, how many years were you a crime scene investigator?
Before I was crime scene investigator for the first 6 years.
What types of training and education do you have to work in crime scene?
Training, that's a very, very good question. I remember answering in federal court a few months ago. What is the main requirements to be a crime scene investigator? Now, it's not just one master's, PhD in crime scene. Forensic science, yes. Biology, chemistry. But crime scene is a multitask job. And one of the best ways to be working in this field is to be certified with the International Association for Identification, which is a worldwide forensic body. And for crime scene certification, it's every 5 years. You have to take recertification, exam, physical exam, practical exams. And it's ongoing. It doesn't just stay the same. The forensic field keeps changing. Now, as you see, the term is over here. They take the bar exam once in their career.
So, investigatory.
But crime scene is
So, let me interrupt for just a moment.
5 years, every 5 years, different material. Why does it change? You have to have continuous education.
So, are you certified by any accredited body?
Yes, I am certified in crime scene investigation and forensic photography.
How long have you held those certifications?
How long? So, well, I just took my recent one for May this year.
Okay. How long prior to that have you had it?
Since I'm on my 4th certification, so I've done it 20 years.
In terms of casework, how much of your day-to-day work is in crime scene and forensics?
I was, apart from supervising, I went up to supervising and mentoring, coaching, training people. So I would say most of my 80% is actual crime scene work and 20% supervisory.
As part of your duties as a crime scene investigator, did you have the opportunity to respond on October 26th of 2018 to Memorial Miramar Hospital?
Yes, I did. And unfortunately, my day starts when somebody else ends. In this case, true.
So, Investigator Kelly, with regards to your primary role that day, what were you assigned to do?
I responded to this hospital, this Miramar hospital, emergency driver. I go there frequently. That's what emergency room's for. Everybody gets shot, stabbed, end up in the hospital. So this called for this scene to assist the investigator, Morgan Curran, who responded to it. And I responded to assist. And I worked on the driver of the car. And when I got to the hospital, there's the Jeep, gray Jeep Trailhawk, multiple bullet holes. And I started with the Jeep photographs first, and then with the driver to process him.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the photographs that you took on that day. I'm now approaching what has been previously shown to defense counsel and marked as states AAA for identification purposes. The photographs that are attached here. Now, you have had the opportunity to review those prior to coming into court today.
Yes, I did.
Do they fairly and accurately represent the photographs that you took on October 26th of 2018 at Memorial Miramar Hospital?
Yes, they do.
Here at this time, the state would request to move states AAA in as a composite of photographs in USB and published to the jury.
Sure, any objection?
Subject to the standard representation with respect to the contents of the USB.
Correct.
No
Okay.
objection.
Making that representation, counsel? Yes?
Yes again.
How many photographs are there?
So it's just one moment, Your Honor, and it's going to require me to do math, so please bear with me. There's 81 and 11. 92 photos in total.
Thank you, so it's a composite of 92 photographs.
States AAA would be marked states 50.
Okay, starting with the initial Jeep photographs. Can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury why you take a photo of a clipboard?
This is the first photograph I take for identification. It's the photo signing sheet. So it shows me a case number, like 2018, the month, and the actual case number, which is 06269. The type of case it is. Was it sexual battery? Was it burglary? In this case, it's a homicide. And then I write the address to show the location. And underneath you'll have the date and the time when I first started taking photos.
So the 0645, is that military time?
Yes, that's the time. It was 6:45 in the morning, but the time when I started taking the photographs.
The next photo, is this documenting what?
I was trying to show where the location is. And if you have a street sign, wonderful. In this case, you have this hospital.
When you're looking here at this photograph, what view are we looking at of the hospital?
We're looking at an exterior photograph showing the emergency driver. And as you can see, it's being sealed off with a yellow barrier tape, the model police vehicle. So that's the exterior with a photograph showing the actual emergency room driver. And the next photograph will show the overhang, which is the patient floor emergency.
And the screen in front of you is a touch screen, so if you can always touch it to highlight
So I
areas
can
of the
touch it?
photograph.
Okay.
Yes. So if you could move the
So-
red cursor to the subject vehicle that you were there to initially document.
So it should be the vehicle.
Okay. Moving on to the next photograph.
The next photograph is the vehicle again. It's a dark gray Jeep Compass, which is called the Trail Hawk model.
And in terms of this little item up here in the top corner, do you know what that is?
Yes, that's the hospital's
Sorry.
surveillance security camera.
Moving on to the next photo. What are you showing here?
Well, that's photographs of the Jeep, and the driver's door was open, and the passenger driver's side door was open. So I took photographs of the Jeep in situ, how we find it.
Do you manipulate it in any way at this time?
Nobody in that. So the next photograph shows the rear of the Jeep.
Okay.
It shows the windshield was completely shattered. Triangle, and that was the tag numbers identify the vehicle.
And what tag number is this vehicle identified by from the state of Florida?
Was that?
What state of Florida tag number is this vehicle identified by?
This is the Florida tag, the tag number IEKD22.
Thank you so much. And finally, moving on to this exterior photo.
Well, this will show passenger door window smashed, the rear passenger door window was smashed, and then you can see bullet holes in the passenger door, the rear passenger door.
Okay.
As you notice now, the daylight starting to arrive. So the lighting changed a little bit. Same picture of the Jeep. The two doors I mentioned before are open.
So, Investigator Kelly, do you take overall establishing shots first for a specific reason?
Correct. That's what I call my establishing picture to show what evidence is there.
Are you looking for evidence and potential evidence while you're taking these photos?
Just, I'm looking in what I'm photographing, and eventually I'm looking underneath the vehicle. I did not go inside the vehicle. Why? Because I was informed that to obtain a search warrant.
Investigator Kelly, when you're taking these initial documentary photos, do you have any briefing or any background information about what has supposedly happened?
The only thing I was told, it was a drive-by shooting. The driver drove up to the emergency room, patient drop-off with two victims, both with gunshots. So that was the only information I'd received at that point.
Do you make contact with detectives who are doing interviews while on scene?
Yeah, I made contact with Detective Hector Bertrand and gave me a brief, and he then requested me to process the driver of this vehicle.
Okay. So we're going to continue forward with the vehicle itself. Is there a benefit to taking photos in daylight versus under the artificial fluorescent lights of the hospital?
It does help a little bit in daylight. But daylight you can see, of course. And but it's still in shadow, it's still dark. So that way, when it's dark as it is, I have to use a flash more to show these pictures, try to show the details of the bullet holes.
Do you label them or mark them in any way at the scene?
Say it again, sorry.
Do you label or mark the bullet holes in any way at the scene?
No.
So going forward through the photos of the Jeep,
Yeah, this is the, I didn't go inside the vehicle, but I could take photographs from the open doors to show the interior. This is the rear passenger seat. And as you noted, there are many items, there's thick congealed blood, there's many items inside the vehicle.
do you remember what the weather was like that morning?
Say it again, you said?
Do you remember what the weather was like
The
that morning?
weather was hot, humid, 84 degrees Fahrenheit. It wasn't raining, dry, humid. Early morning fire. This is a rear trunk area.
And it's still, you're not entering the vehicle in any way, shape, or form for these photos.
Yeah, and there was a black hole back there. This is the VIN number.
I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. What is a VIN number?
So the VIN number here is 3C4N JDDB2JT198929.
Okay.
And
What are you documenting in this photo?
this is the driver's seat and various items inside it. This is the exterior of the driver's door. Then again, notice some marks, the damage to the vehicle in the hood, the bumper area.
As a crime scene investigator, do you respond out to run-of-the-mill car crashes?
I didn't understand the question.
Do you go to hit and runs on the side of the road as a crime scene investigator?
I did do hit and run.
In terms of the documentation that you do for a crash, is that something as part of your training and experience that you have been done over the past 20-some years in crime scene?
Yes, I do have experience in photographing vehicles involved in accidents.
Okay.
And of course, when you do, for example, if it's an accident vehicle, you do want to document the damage to the vehicle.
Okay.
The hood is damaged. As you can see, it's misaligned there.
Did you have any idea as to when that damage could have occurred?
I have no idea how the damage occurred.
What is your job when you're doing this?
Document, collect evidence, and process evidence.
So after you finish doing all of the exterior photos of the Jeep, what do you do next?
As I explained before, I then went to meet the driver of this vehicle.
Do you make sure that this Jeep is sealed?
What do you mean? The seal?
Do you secure the doors and other areas of the Jeep with evidence tape?
Yes. Prior to a search warrant, we will then seal out the vehicle with red evidence tape.
Moving on, there is now a photo placard A in this photo.
There is a bullet projectile, which is by the passenger side rear tire.
Is that the item in question?
This is it. Correct.
And do you know what this little gray round thing is over on this side?
That was the valve stem cap from the tire.
In terms of this view here, why do you take multiple photos of placard A?
Take multiple photographs to show the location, general shelf, establishing shelf, and then close-ups. And the next photograph shows the sealing up the vehicle, red evidence tape, which I put my initials and date on.
Okay, and you do that around the entire vehicle?
Yes.
How do you transport the vehicle from the hospital?
We could use a tow truck service, and when we do tow, so for example here, A and B, I document it being put onto the flatbed, and then I escort it to a secure facility. So in that way we know nobody touches the vehicle, nobody opens the door, they don't break the seal. So we use a tow truck to take it to a secure facility.
Do you then secure it in the facility and secure that with evidence tape as well?
Correct. And we take it to the, this was a wet substation, and I seal up the doors, lock all the shutters to preserve the evidence.
Okay. Going now to, you mentioned you processed an individual at the hospital.
Correct.
Who was that individual you processed?
Name was Cortlen Henry.
Where was Mr. Henry being held or kept?
It's in this room. So photo shows isolation exam room 18.
Was anyone else in the room with Mr. Henry when you went in there?
There was an officer guarding him. Yes.
Is this how you found Mr. Henry when you entered? Did you explain?
So I photograph victim, a suspect, and photograph them, and search through how you find them. I also look to see if there's any visible injuries, is there any blood on the hands, for example, so I'm photographing the hands. And we photograph tattoos, any form of identification marks.
And was Mr. Henry wearing a hospital-issued identification tag or bracelet?
Well, there's a hospital identification tag for Henry Cortlen.
So the items over here on the floor, what are those?
These are the clothing that Cortlen Henry was wearing when he came into the hospital. Now, I didn't see him wearing the clothes, but that's what the responding, the first officer told me. This is his clothes that was in the room with him. And typical hospital procedures, they take off the clothes. Which is why every time we go to the hospital, they're all naked. Why? They remove the clothing. And there's two bags here. One has the footwear and the other bag has the clothing.
Okay, I'm going to start and show you what's been previously shown to the defense counsel as states C. Do you recognize this item?
Yes, I recognize it.
How do you recognize this?
Oh, it had my handwriting on it. It has my initial date, and it does give a description of what it is.
What is that item?
This item is a T-shirt, black T-shirt with Drew Film Edit written on it.
And is that item in the same or substantially same condition as when you collected it?
Yes, it does.
Was there 2 cuttings taken from that shirt and done by you at a later date?
This was collected from this shirt, yes.
Is that the shirt packaged as it was after you took the cuttings?
Yes, this is how I packaged the evidence after I had collected my evidence from this item.
Here at this time, the state would request to treat states C in as our next exhibit
No objection, Your Honor.
52.
It'll be admitted.
States C marked states 52.
Investigator Kelly, if I could be so kind as to ask you to publish this shirt. There are gloves to your left, and I will grab you some scissors.
I'll skip the lunch. I go fresh for lunch.
And if you could show the small logo on the front of the t-shirt first.
Yes, this is the front of the T-shirt.
Okay. And if you so kind as to show the back.
And this is the back of the T-shirt.
Thank you so much. If you would be kind enough to repackage that. showing you what's been marked as state triple D for identification purposes only. Do you recognize those items?
Yes, I do recognize this.
What are those items?
I listed the 3 items in the package, and they are the cutting from the blood stain on the front of that t-shirt, and a cutting from the rear of the t-shirt, and then I have a swab from the blood stain on the Air Jordan sneakers, which is this.
And is that in the same or substantially same condition as when you collected that and processed it?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to state triple D in as states 55.
Without objection, Your Honor.
53.
Thank you, they'll be admitted without objection.
States triple D, marked states 53.
Okay. So with regards to the cuttings that are in there that you described, are those subsets or taken from that shirt that was introduced as states 52?
The first 2 items were taken from Drew Phil Eric t-shirt.
Okay. So I'm now showing you what's been marked as states triple E for identification purposes only. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
What is that?
It is the hoodie, black hoodie, and also the t-shirt has been removed and repackaged. But the other item inside here is a plastic container, blue plastic container.
And is that item in the same or substantially same condition as when you retrieved it on October 26th of 2018?
Yes,
You said one item was repackaged. What was that item?
the t-shirt which I just shown you before.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would request to move states triple E in.
Without objection, Your Honor.
It'll be admitted.
States 54.
States triple E, marked states 54.
You'd be so kind as to publish the sweatshirt from in there. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, you can package that back up. I'm going to give you now what's been marked as state triple F for identification purposes. Do you recognize state triple F?
Yes, I do recognize this.
What is that?
It's the sneakers, these sneakers that are in the photo up there.
Are they in the
Right
same?
here.
Are they in the same or substantially same condition as when you collected them on October 26th of 2018?
Yes,
Here at this time, the state would request to move states triple F in as 55.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
It'll be admitted.
States triple F, marked states 55.
Okay. I want to go back out to the scene of the Jeep again for a moment. Did the projectile by photo marker A, did you recover that particular item?
I did.
Okay. Now approaching with what's been marked as states triple G for identification purposes only. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize that item?
Has my writing, it conceal a description of what this item is. And that's the flattened bullet projectile, which I use the photo marker A from the crime scene photographs.
Is it in the same or substantially same condition as when you collected it on October 26th of 2018?
Yes,
You're on
that place it was back in 2018.
Here at this time, the state would request to move states triple G in as states 56.
Any objection?
No objections.
It'll be admitted.
States triple G, marked states 56.
So going through the photos here, the back one. Did you conduct an analysis on the hands or process the hands of Cortlen Henry?
Yes, I did what you call GSR, gunshot residue, GSR.
Did you
Test.
do one or two of those?
I do 2 tests.
Okay.
Now, there's always this dilemma, which one you do first. In this case, I did the evidential one first for laboratory testing. And my secondary test was a presumptive test.
So in this approach with what's been previously marked as states triple H for identification purposes only, do you recognize that item?
Yes, I did.
How do you recognize that item?
My handwriting, my evidence seal, and a description of what this is. It is a gunshot residue evidence collection kit. This is a collection kit we use for laboratory testing with the SEM, which is a scanning electron microscope.
Does Miramar have a scanning electron microscope at the police department that you can use?
No, it's a scan electron microscope is not optical. You may remember from your science days when you could look through an optical magnifier for blood, see the squiggly thing moving around. But because gunpowder residue is too small, you need electronic scanning microscope. It's not optical, it works by electron. Almost like a sonar radar. It's ping and bounces back. And that's the only way you can see or detect gunshot residue. You have to remember.
So, investigator Kelly, may I interrupt you for a moment? Is that item in the same or substantially same condition as when you collected it on October 26th of 2018?
Yes, it is.
Here at this time, the state would request to move states triple H in,
Any objection?
No, sir.
It'll be admitted.
states 56,
57.
57. Thank you, Travis. Okay, so now looking back up at the photo that's up on the screen, if you could describe what is the next gunshot residue test that you did.
This is a photograph I took of the presumptive GSR kit I did from Cortlen Henry. And the photograph, you put the description of the name, and I try and take a photograph of the actual results.
And can you explain to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury how you interpret these results?
To interpret these results, you're looking at blue specks, which will react. It's a chemical reaction to the nitrate, so blue speck will give a positive identification.
So on here, there's kind of a reddish brown. Is that a positive identification?
Well, obviously, when you swipe somebody's hand for swipes, you can get grime, blood, and so forth. It's not blood, but other articles will attach to the swab. I couldn't see any real blue to me.
No.
I couldn't see it in the test.
So going forward, did you have an occasion where you collected DNA swabs regarding the victims in this case? Were they given to your care, custody, and control?
DNA swab from who, sir?
That would be DNA swabs 3, 4, 49, 54, 87, 88, and 89.
Yes, I did collect these.
Are they in the same or substantially same condition as when you collected them in 2018?
Yes.
And then, for the record, this has been labeled as states triple I for identification. And this time the state would offer states triple I into evidence as states 58.
Any objection?
No, sir.
They'll be admitted.
States triple I, marked states 58.
Okay. I'm approaching with what's been previously shown to defense counsel and marked for identification purposes only as states triple B. Do you recognize those photos?
Yes, I do.
Did you have the opportunity to review them before coming into court today?
I did.
Do they fairly and accurately depict the processing of the items that we just put into evidence?
Yes, I do.
Is there an additional photo of items that are no longer in the custody of the Miramar Police Department?
The additional photograph would be the jewelry. I didn't collect that at the hospital. It was handed to me later by Officer Hadley.
Did you process it and document that jewelry?
I did.
And in terms of the disposition of that jewelry, do you know what happened to it?
No.
Would that be documented on a property receipt?
Of course.
And do the state's photos and states triple B fairly and accurately represent your documentation and processing?
Yes, it does.
Here at this time, the state would request to move states triple B in and publish to the jury.
How
No
many
objection.
photographs are there?
No objection, Your Honor.
One moment, Your Honor.
States triple B will be marked states 59.
Deposit.
Have a USB, and I will tell you in just a moment how many photographs. 18 photographs, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel.
Okay, going here, there's a number and a letter associated with this image. What does that tell you when you're looking at it?
Yeah, this is a photograph of the clothing, and I give it a new identification mark A for clothing.
Did you separate the shirt from the sweatshirt and document it further?
Correct. Sweatshirt and T-shirt together, and the blue cast container.
Okay. The item in now photo marker is labeled B.
Yes, I've given the container B for identification, and it shows the cannabis.
Moving on to the item that's labeled C. Is that what has been previously entered into evidence as the shirt?
Yes, this is the T-shirt I just shown the jury, and this is the front of the T-shirt.
Was there an item of interest on the front of the T-shirt?
Yeah, we had two small specks of blood on the front of the T-shirt. That's a close-up photograph to show small specks of blood.
Same close-up photograph of that?
Yes, that's close-up.
Moving on to the rear of that
And
T-shirt.
this is the rear, and there's another small speck of blood on the rear. And that's very small.
And in terms of how do you know this is the rear versus the front?
So I've given the C for front, C for right, C front, C rear.
And so did you then process and document the sweatshirt?
This is a sweatshirt, and these are the sneakers.
And one of the items that you put in was a swab of a blood stain from the sneakers. Is that indicated in the photo we're looking at here?
Yes, on the right at the bottom there of the sneaker, there's a very small blood stain.
And then the jewelry here that was given to you for processing by Officer Hadley.
That is correct. This is the jewelry.
So that, you've gone through most of what you did on October 26th of 2018 so far. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you do to prevent cross-contamination while you're analyzing items in the lab?
To prevent cross-contamination, we change our gloves frequently for every item you handle. Of course, wearing a mask. And wearing tie-back protection where required if it's blood stained. Everything you can do to prevent cross-contamination. You package each item separately, handle each item separately with the gloves on, and keep changing. It's surprising how many boxes of gloves you go through when you do that.
Do you document every single time you change your gloves? Do you write it down in your report every time you change your gloves?
Not every time. I just put in a brief part of my body of my report. I change gloves frequently.
Okay.
I don't specifically say how many gloves I use. It's just that I change frequently.
Okay, going on to October 31st of 2018. Did you assist Miramar crime scene technician Christopher Carter in documenting the search warrant of the Jeep?
Yes, I did. I helped him with moving the items, changing the gloves, turning it over, both sides, and so forth. So I did assist them, yes.
Did you assist later on on November 25th of 2018, did you assist Morgan Curry with processing an MVAC filter?
Yes, I did.
Going forward to November 28th of 2018, did you assist in doing a trajectory analysis?
Yes, I did.
And so what was the goal of the trajectory analysis?
The goal for this trajectory analysis was basically to show approximate height of the shooter. At this time, I didn't know where the original shooting had taken place. The hospital was the second proceeding. So, using trajectory strings and rods, I can determine approximate height of the shooter. In this case, it's between 5'10" and 4'8".
And in terms of the shooting reconstruction, is that a separate procedure that is done as opposed to a trajectory analysis?
Correct.
The information that you had with regards to a drive-by, was that still the information you thought when you were doing this trajectory analysis?
Yes, that's still the only information I had at that time.
The cuttings that were made, was that done on or about December 24th of 2018?
December the 24th. I'm sorry, what did we do then?
The cuttings, is that a
Oh, yes, the cuttings. The T-shirt I just showed you, I took cuttings. The reason is the labs usually prefers a cutting sometimes as opposed to a swab. Why? It gives them a better chance for a DNA extraction.
In terms of other times that you were called out, did you assist some of the other crime scene technicians with processing the vehicle in various ways?
I did assist my staff with various other aspects of this investigation.
Other than what we have previously talked about, did you collect any other items of evidence?
Not to my knowledge, no.
In terms of the keys to the Jeep, were those present when you were doing these various search warrants?
Sorry, who was present?
The keys, the car keys.
Oh, the car keys.
Were
For the
they
Jeep.
Yes. Were they provided?
Yes.
Nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Counsel, thank you.
No.
Any cross-examination of this witness?
Yes, sir.
If you're ready, you may.
Thank you. Sir, how are you? I'm good.
Thank you for being with us.
Just have a few questions to clarify. You began, well, let me start where you finished, about the trajectory analysis that you did. You said that the purpose of your trajectory analysis was to establish the approximate height of the chute.
That's what I said.
Would
One
that
reason.
be one reason? And the other would be to determine the flight path of the projectile. Correct.
That is correct.
Okay. So, may I, Your Honor?
Yes.
So, and you used string to do this?
Strings and rods.
Strings and rods. Okay, let's set the rods aside for a second. The strings that you used, the way that you use them is that you affix them to the bullet holes that you saw.
Correct. To try and fix a string, we use like a blue tack.
A piece of gum, essentially.
Okay. It's a good way to say it.
Right.
Easy go.
So you took a piece of gum, and if I may approach, let us assume, would you step around here and help me out? Let us assume, for example, that this witness stand is the vehicle. And you perceive there to be a bullet hole at this location.
Okay.
So demonstrate for me, I know we got the bullet hole string affixed to the bullet hole with a piece of gum here. Tell me how you perceive from that.
If there is a bullet hole in the gum, the next very important item you need is another hole. A good bullet trajectory you need 2 or 3 holes. Gives you some idea of the flight path. One hole is very difficult. You can't tell which way the bullet trajectory is coming in.
Okay, so let's just be clear. Any of the analyses that you performed, you did on at least 2 holes that you assumed or concluded represented the flight path of a single projectile. Correct?
Correct. But remember that you've got the rear windshield completely shattered.
Okay.
So there's no holes in the glass,
Right?
but it's going into the rear seat.
Okay. So one of the holes would be the first hole in the back of the rear seat, and the second hole would be where?
If it goes through, then you have to move.
Okay. So the holes that you analyzed with your string and gum were holes that perforated the back of the seat, and you could tell where they exited another part of the seat.
The ones in the seat finish there. Why? Tell me, bullets get into the victim. It didn't continue to the front seat. I know one did, but we're talking about the string area. It ended there. It didn't continue after.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to figure out where the 2 holes are. One would be the back of the seat, and the other would be the front of the seat. Okay. So those were your 2 holes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take us from there. You have one hole in the front of the seat, right? And you have a hole in the back of the seat. Well, the seat might be wider. And you affix the string on which side of the hole?
Whichever area you can attach the gun to. Is it possible to do that? Usually it's on the outer area.
Well, if it's on the outer area, how are you sure that you have identified the correct trajectory as it relates to the hole in the front of the seat?
string is for this part, and then you can use the rods. You have to push it all the way through.
So there you would push the rod through the hole. It will come out on the other side, the front side of the seat, which would indicate to you the trajectory. And then you would fix the string on the back of that rod, and then you extend backwards. Okay, and that's how you proceeded.
Generally speaking.
So there was no string that was affixed to the back of the seat that was not done so
Yeah.
in relation to a rod that had been put through the hole.
Right, because string is too fragile to go through.
Understood.
The reason why I use a rod to the string. The string is, that's the amount of area to attach to, so then the gun will go from this way.
Okay, but the angle that you extend the string backward is dictated by the rod that has been put through the hole and meets the other hole in the front. That's a yes?
That's,
You don't sound
say
sure.
it again, so you said, say it again.
The angle that you extend that string backward from the back of the seat is dictated by the angle of the rod that has gone through that hole to the hole in the front.
You're saying that the angle from the rod is dictated by
The angle of the string is dictated by the angle of the rod that you had already placed through that hole,
okay,
right?
I agree with that.
That is, I'm not the expert. You tell me. Is that what happened?
I agree with you.
Well, is that what you did?
I don't remember now, but I
Wouldn't you
remember the
have?
string part. I remember.
I'm sorry.
One at a time. man.
I'm sorry.
Can't talk over one
That's,
another.
that's my fault. No, don't go. I need you here. I understand if you are having failing recollection. This was a while back. But as a scientific matter, would it not have to be the angle of that string coming out, at which you extended, would it not have to be dictated by the angle of the rod that you have placed in there? Would it have to?
You can make it different. You have to remember, bullets don't always go completely straight. Bullets twist, turn, up and down. So the theory is, it's possible, but anything can happen with bullet trajectory. Flight path doesn't always go smooth and straight.
I understand that. Okay. And I assume it's not.
To try and determine from just two holes with no exterior, it's difficult.
Okay. So you're up against a difficult task. Let's concede that, right? And in performing that task, how, if you didn't dictate the angle that you extended that string backward by the rod that was placed inside, how would you know what angle to extend backward?
I don't know exactly.
How do you know it?
It's
Guesswork?
an approximate angle. The height is what I'm looking for.
But I mean, the height's dictated by two things. The angle that that string extends backward and the location of the person who fired.
Correct.
Okay, so if I'm Shaquille O'Neal,
Yes.
I could fire from here, and I would be up here. And if I were Gary Coleman,
Counsel testifying.
Pardon me?
Objection, counsel testifying.
Overruled.
and if I were Gary Coleman, remember different strokes? Short guy. If I was a short guy, and I was firing from here, it would create the same angle as it would if I were Shaquille O'Neal back here. True
Well,
or
no,
false?
that's a very interesting thing.
Okay.
Especially from a time. But you have to remember, people shoot. If you normal people expect people to shoot at high level, right? But who knows when you're going to shoot again? You can shoot down here. You can shoot like this. So there's never, your theory. Oh, it's got to be this way. It has to be this way. You don't know if this should be actually there. witnessing the shooting and an angle of how the gun was held. So your theory is, I think the possible.
Right.
You shot here, you shot there.
Thank you. So, let me clarify. If I have two people, one is 4 feet 8, one is 6 foot 2. Let us assume, for purposes of my example, that they both are extending the firearm at the same angle from their bodies, from their respective bodies. Okay?
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation. Counsel is testifying.
Why don't you come side?
Thank you.
Come on back. Okay. So, we're assuming two different people at two different heights. A short person and a tall person. Okay? Assuming they're both extending the firearm from their bodies at the same angle, the person who is this short would expel a projectile that would enter whatever the target is at the same angle as somebody who is this tall. Can we agree on that fundamental principle?
I agree.
Okay. And as you correctly stated, there are even more variables. That is, and I wasn't trying to outsmart you, couldn't do that. They could be firing at one angle, could be firing at another angle, at any variety of angles. So in order to determine the approximate height, which was what you were attempting to do,
Excuse me, turn off the phone, please.
which is what you're attempting to do, right?
That's what I'm attempting to do.
Okay.
Answer your question.
But it's approximate.
Approximately.
Okay.
Like I said, I don't know if it was a drive-by, moving, I don't know.
Okay.
So it's one part of it.
So now we have several variables. What angle the person is holding the gun,
Correct?
how far back they are, correct? And how tall they are.
Well, three factors.
3 factors.
Yep.
So with all those 3 variables, which one did you know?
I did not know.
You didn't know any.
I did.
So would you agree with me that when you have 3 variables, at a minimum, there are probably more that we haven't considered, 3 variables that affect your analysis, none of which you know, you would agree with me that your exercise was essentially a futile one.
Well, you have a good point. Could it be inaccurate? No.
Could be.
And the other parts of the exam as well, we've not mentioned.
That would even create more possible inaccuracies, right?
You don't know, so would you try to work out what happened, where it was shot, who was shooting, approximate angle.
Understood. You said you don't know everything. In this scenario, you don't know anything, correct?
I agree with you. I didn't know anything about what happened.
Okay.
I never saw the video. Wasn't on scene.
Okay. So knowing nothing and embarking upon essentially a futile exercise, knowing nothing going in means that coming out of that exercise, you know nothing. Correct?
Well, the way you say it makes it appear that way. Maybe.
Make it appear different for me. Well, what I'm saying is, if there are several variables that affect your experiment, none of which
The
you...
witness resume his seat and
Sure.
Mr. Howard resume
Sure,
the podium.
sure, I'm sorry. Please, resume your seat. I don't mean to be...
Theatrical.
Excuse me, guys. Have a seat, Mr. Kelly, and Allison, just resume asking your question.
Thank you, sir. If you're engaged in an exercise that requires you to know certain factors, and you know none of them,
So your question is...
I'm sorry. Come side for a second.
we have a court reporter who's trying to keep track. I don't want to talk over you, and I don't want you to talk over me, so we have a complete and accurate record, okay? Let me finish my question. If you're engaged in an exercise that requires you to know certain variables, and you know none of them, strike that. The exercise in which you were engaged requires you to know certain variables, correct?
It does require you to. If you know the variables, it certainly will help you, yes.
And if you don't know the variables, any of them, then you cannot perform an accurate test.
It's difficult to perform an accurate result if you do not know all the variables. Correct.
Okay. I just want you to change one word in that statement. It's impossible, not difficult. It's impossible.
Objection, arguments to...
Sustained.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is it possible?
Well, anything is possible. Huh? It's like you may have cheated on your bar exam. I don't know. Possible? I didn't say it was, but it's possible.
Right.
Anything is possible.
All right, now let's bring it back to what I was just saying. Is it possible to conduct an accurate trajectory analysis if you do not know the height of the person involved?
I disagree with you because flight trajectory doesn't always come down to height of issue, it's also angle.
Okay. So if you know the distance at which the person was, and you know the trajectory, then you can determine the height. Right?
It's possible, yes.
Okay. And if you don't know the distance, and all you know is the trajectory, which you are approximating to begin, it's impossible to determine anything that's useful to an investigation. If the answer is yes, just say yes.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think it's impossible. It's still some valid forensic work, in my opinion. You can say what you like. You can tell the jury what you like. You wasn't there. I wasn't there. You can say, oh, anything was possible. Maybe. But we still don't know exactly what happened.
You have anything you want to add to that?
Just
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You also conducted, I believe, a swab of Mr. Cortlen Henry's hands, did you not?
swab from his hand, you said?
I'm sorry, let me ask you this. Did you conduct a swab that of Cortlen Henry from any part of his being?
From Cortlen Henry, I collected oral swabs for DNA.
Okay. You didn't do any swab on his hands at all?
We did the GSR
Okay.
collection.
Okay, so that you don't refer to that as a swab.
Correct.
I'm sorry. So you did a GSR. You attempted to do something to his hand to determine whether or not he had GSR.
The purpose of GSR will give you an indication if you fired a weapon or you've been in close contact when a weapon was discharged.
And you conducted a test on site,
Correct. Called presumptive test.
a presumptive test. And you also sent, what is the thing that you sent back to the lab for the other test?
That is the Tritech evidentiary gunshot residue collection kit for the scanning electronic microscope, which is valid in court. It's a scientific test.
And your presumptive test showed negative.
Correct.
And you know that a lab test showed positive.
Outside the
That is
scope,
correct.
objection.
Sustained.
Let me ask you this. Was your presumptive test accurate?
Objection, Your Honor. Outside the scope.
What's your side?
You did a analysis, you tell us. Actually, strike that. May I approach, Your Honor?
What does?
I have what I believe to be a report of his. I'd like to take a peek at.
Sure. Go ahead.
Needs his memory refresh. He doesn't.
I wanted to identify.
Go ahead.
Finished. And maybe I should mark it for purposes of identification as defendants 1.
We use letters for identification. So
Oh, I'm sorry. Defendants 8.
we'll mark it for you.
Your Honor, in terms of the report, I have an objection if you want the sidebar.
Sure.
Sure. We have comment.
Okay, may I? Yeah? I'd like to approach you, sir, and show you what I've had marked as defendant's exhibits for identification purposes only, A and B. And I want you to tell me if those are both parts of reports that you authored.
Okay.
I also want you to tell me, without revealing what the context is, if the items identified as Roman numeral 1 through 8 on Exhibit A is intended to convey information of the same nature as those that are labeled 1 through 8 on Exhibit B. Not if they're the same thing, but if they're intended to convey information of the same nature.
So your question is, say it again.
I want you to look at both.
Council, why don't you come sidebar, please?
Do it another. Did you look at that?
Yes, I did.
Am I reading correct? Sorry, strike that. When you were determining approximate heights of shooters, did you determine the approximate height of a shooter at 2 feet 8 inches tall?
No, what you're referring to in the report is not the height of a shooter. That is, the bullet holes on the passenger side of the door was the actual measurement from the ground up to each bullet hole. It's just to show the height.
Okay.
Nothing to do with bullet flight.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
And I can explain, as I'm trying to explain to the jury, you need 2 to 3 bullet holes through 1, 2, 3 to give you some indication. If there's just one bullet hole, it's not, how can I say, it's just no real forensic tests to determine a proper bullet flight path if you only have one hole.
Okay. So the indications 5'10", 5'3", 5'1", 4'10" are approximate heights.
Sustained. Hey, sure. Come sidewalk.
You, sir, came up with height trajectory. The highest one you came up with, not trajectory, the height of shooter, the highest one you approximated was 5'10", correct?
What I previously said was approximately 5'10" from the rear shooter.
The lowest, the shortest shooter height that you approximated was 4'8", right?
That's what I said is that the approximate angle from that was 4'8", yes.
Approximate angle or approximate height?
I mean approximate height, I'm sorry.
Okay. And you also approximated a height of 5'3".
Yes, I did.
And you approximated a height of 4'10".
I did.
And you approximated a height of 4'9".
I did.
And you approximated a height of 5'1".
Correct.
Okay. Let's get back now to the blood analysis or swabs. Strike that. The blood observations you made on the clothing that belonged to Cortlen Henry.
Okay.
You analyzed a sweatshirt and a t-shirt, right?
What I would call it a hoodie.
A hoodie.
Yeah.
A hoodie
T-shirt.
and a t-shirt.
Correct.
And you found any blood on the hoodie?
No. Not on the hoodie.
But you found blood on the t-shirt.
Yes. Underneath the hoodie.
You found blood on the t-shirt underneath the hoodie, both in the front of that t-shirt and in the back.
That is correct.
Okay. One second, Your Honor. there ever a time that you went inside the vehicle
Which
and issued the gray Jeep that we've seen several pictures, photographs of that you took?
if you're referring to one that's at the hospital, I didn't go inside the Jeep at that time.
Okay. So you never retrieved any of the items from inside?
That's correct. I did not retrieve anything inside the Jeep.
The only reason and only time that you went inside is when you were sticking your gum and string on the seat, right?
The only time I really went inside that Jeep was when we had the search warrant for when I attached the strings and rods. Yes, that's correct.
And you were telling us that in your report, you typically document the fact that you change gloves,
Say it again. You said it's fine that
that you change latex gloves during the process of your handling of evidence,
that is correct.
but you don't necessarily document each time that you do.
I find it difficult to put in a report every time you change gloves, like every time you open a door or so forth. So I usually put in the body of my report, I change gloves frequently for each item I change.
Okay.
As opposed to listing, I changed the glove for this item. Next sentence, I handled this and I changed the glove for this one, and so forth. So to make it more clear, concise, just easier to say, logical to say, I change my glove frequently every time I handle a piece of evidence.
So, the way that you phrase it in your reports is that I change my gloves frequently to indicate that you're changing it several times. Correct?
Correct. Well, but one can ask something else to say. The purpose of this is so we don't create any contamination. Now, my DNA is not on any of the evidence. Neither was my fingerprint. Why? Because I change gloves frequently. I don't touch the evidence with my bare hand.
Another way that you can contaminate evidence, as opposed to putting your own DNA and fingerprints on it, is by transferring DNA from one item that you are handling to another.
Correct. That's called cross-contamination.
And the way that you avoid that is when you handle one item, you use one set of gloves, right?
Correct.
And then when you're going to handle another item, you change gloves so as to ensure no cross-contamination.
That is the general procedure, crime scene work, handling evidence.
Okay. And it's not only a general procedure, it's a necessary procedure, or you could engage in cross-contamination.
Of course, it's crucial you don't contaminate evidence.
So if you find, for example, and you're a supervisor
Correct.
in this area of crime scene analysis, right? Okay. So if you find, for example, a number of articles in the same location, is it still proper to change your gloves when you're dealing with each item?
Difficult to say. I know myself, I change my gloves, even though it's in the same area.
And why do you do that?
I don't want to create any cross-contamination. That's why I want to go to a scene, I've always got my box of gloves with me, change. And we go through them frequently. And the funny thing is, the command staff always complain about the cost, which using too many gloves. Unfortunately, part of the job. Changing gloves.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, sir. Is there any redirect?
Briefly, with regards to the trajectory rods and strings, you document heights of items. Are you documenting the height at which the trajectory was coming out of the back window, where the back window would have been if it was still in place?
Correct.
Nothing further.
Is this witness excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, sir. You may step down. You're excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 o'clock, and we'll call it a day. There's some sidebar, sir.